A motion by Helmut.
Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township. You know, those government people that make laws and regulations and ordinances that affect you out there.
That's right, Elgin. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Oxford Township, or Addison Township, these are the people that you went and elected. And you got another election coming up pretty soon, too. But,
yes.
and the committees and the commissions that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you chose to go to that important meeting or not, and the result could be a taxing situation.
Or worse.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's humor in it, for sure. Almost every
yeah.
meeting has humor. You just have to dig for it a little bit, sometimes.
Humor is usually at the expense of someone.
Right, and sometimes you don't have to dig at all. It just, there it is, right in front of you.
There it is. And
yeah. And we're here to tell you folks what goes on, the real truth, the matter of things.
Except for, little rumors that,
well,
might just pop
okay.
out every now and then.
You folks be the judgment. Be the judge. Okay.
You read your rumors.
Yes, I do. Okay. But you did mention that there's an election coming up November 7th.
Yes, there is.
And actually, I believe there's two items that are on the ballot. And they're both related to the school system, Oxford
Yeah, it's
school.
only the school. You wonder why the school doesn't just merge right into the regular election.
You know, that's a good question.
Where the majority of voters could vote. Well, the majority of voters can vote, but are they interested in just a school election?
Could be the majority of the school people are interested. I don't know how that works. But anyway, there are a couple of items on there, and one is the bonding proposal, which is actually a renewal of the existing bond in order to protect the monies that are being allocated, under that bond proposal. And I think that's over a $12 million, $112 million.
Wow.
That bond has to be approved.
A chump change.
I don't think there's a whole lot of choice in that particular issue, but the second one that is coming up is the sinking fund millage proposal.
And everybody knows what a sinking fund is, don't they?
It's sinking.
Well, what is it, Elgin?
Well, actually, this one it covers a lot of the same items that the bond does, but it covers security items, for example, for improvements, acquisition of upgrading of technology. Wish they got a communications program there, and
but why is it called a sinking
robotics
fund?
and so forth.
Kind of like a boat.
Well, it's not as much money compared to the bond issue, but it's going to be roughly about $800 and some thousand, and that's strictly a guesstimate.
Okay.
So anyway, you folks might want to brush up on those items, check out the internet, and learn more before you enter the voting booth.
November 7th.
November 7th. This is coming up fast. Let's talk about, first of all, the Oxford Township ZBA board meeting. That's the township, and make that rather quick because it was a long meeting in certain aspects that they conversed about signage. And the individual that came forward on this after the pledge was the regular business. It was for the
Legacy Center?
Yeah, Legacy Center. You got it. You must have read that.
Nope.
No, you didn't read it? Okay.
I'm reading you.
Oh, you read me? Okay. Anyway, Kelly Rosner Myers is the chairperson for the ZBA board. And the area that they were talking about, the applicant, of course, is Christian Mills.
Right.
He's from Lake Orion.
He operates the Legacy Center as a bunch of concessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's got quite an operation going there. Mm-hmm. And he asked to have an area that's zone C2, general commercial, a variance for a wall sign. And the wall sign is for a certain business in that location which uses 500 square feet of signage. And code requirement or ordinance is 150 square feet. So he's asking that it remain the same size
At 500.
500 square feet, because all that's changing on the sign is a logo for the particular company. And so what ended up happening here is they spent a lot of time talking about murals on the wall and how much space they encompass, and actually the point was made that murals actually should be presented as signage, but in this case it wasn't set up as signage. There are other signs representing the various businesses. Some are on the doors that enter the building. which give a list of the various businesses that are there. And there's
True,
a number
but
of
you
businesses
can't easily
there.
see something on a door as you scream by on 24.
Yeah, and actually screaming by on 24, sometimes you can't see the big sign.
Well, true.
But the point was made that 500 square feet is pretty good size. And as an example, Callie Rossner, she said that, for example, let's take 150 square feet. There's no reason why she felt that 150 square feet couldn't work, because that was taller than the room that they were in terms of height, and width-wise certainly could be able to see that sign. But anyway, so there's quite a discussion that went on, and the point of it, they started with, I believe, the north side of the building, and went all the way around the building and talked about signage.
Nothing on the north side.
Well, not on.
Mainly
well, there
on
is,
the east side.
No, there is some signs. There's some signage on the north side as well as the south side. There is a sign on the west side, which part of it is a logo of the American flag. And the question came up, well, is that American flag lit? Is it following all the requirements? You know, and so those all those issues came up. You folks want to see more? This is actually on OCTV, OCCTV.org, and check programs, and you can view this ZBA meeting. The way it ended up, and I'm going to cut to the short of this, the way it ended up is that some of the signage was, I'm sorry, I want to say decals, but what do I call those things?
Murals.
Murals, those guys. Yeah, I was talking about those. Anyhow, he agreed to remove a mural in order to allocate space for the sign. And they pointed out you can eliminate these murals, you can eliminate signs, you make them any size pretty much you want, but you have to remain within the ordinance requirements if you do that. And so when it was all said and done, they said, well, the only thing that's changing on this thing is the logo. So they agreed to keep the 500 square foot. Now, we went a long ways around this block, didn't we, to get that 500 square feet?
They literally were not changing the size of the sign itself, simply a portion of it.
Yep. And the only thing is, if you make a change to a sign, regardless if it's a logo or if it's print or whatever it is, then you have to go to the ordinance requirements.
And they don't care who your grandfather was.
They don't care who your grandfather was. That's for sure. So anyway, so that was the meeting on the Zoning Board of Appeals on October 9th. Now let's talk about the Oxford Township Board of Trustees. Now that was an extra long meeting, but I just want to hit some highlights on that. People, of course, that serve on this board is Bill Dunn, Joe Ferrari, of course, is the treasurer of the township, Curtis Wright is the clerk, and Jack Curtis is a trustee. Patty Durr is a trustee, Margaret Payne is trustee, and yes, Elgin Nichols is trustee. So we all serve on that board, and that was October 11th. And we did cover an array of different things, much too long probably for this meeting, so I'll just hit those highlights. One of the main issues was, again, the Legacy Center with Christian Mills. And he had applied for actually 2 locations within the Legacy Center for a Class C liquor license, which for you folks that don't know what a Class C is for beer and wine.
Oh.
And so there's
Planning a restaurant there, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, it's a restaurant kind of bar situation that's there. And so there's a lengthy discussion on this, and we'll tell you more when we come back right after this. Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about now the Oxford Township Board of Trustees. And the subject that came up was a Class C liquor license. But the interesting thing is that Christian Mills asked for 2 licenses for the same location.
Oh.
Under 2 different names. But if
He has
they
2
quack like a duck, they are ducks in
But
the
he
same
has
location.
2 separate concessions.
Two
within
different,
the building.
two different businesses within that location, supposedly. And but it would have been under the same location under regulation and law. You know, that's a concern.
That's like having 2 bars in a mall.
2 bars in a mall. It could happen.
Not a song.
Not at all. I thought you were going to sing me
Or not.
here for a moment. I guess not. Anyway, so that was one of the major things that came up here. Another issue was, you know, the Legacy Center is designed supposedly for families and children. A lot of kids there and so forth. And let's face it, you know, wine and beer is a drug, as defined, and so that was an issue that came up as well.
And yet they have bars and malls.
Right, they did point that out, but they don't always say that this location is strictly for children. You know, they don't have jumping things and basketball things and whatever,
Well,
you know,
they're
in
not-
terms of games.
They're not in the same location, though, are they?
They're close proximity. They're
Oh,
not far
okay.
away. You can walk to them. You can't drive a truck there. I could spread a rumor you could take a helicopter and get there. Maybe not. So anyway, so after all it cleared, they denied one application for the liquor license and really accepted the other one. So
minute.
he will be getting one license.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You said Class C in both cases?
Class C in both
But then
cases.
you said liquor.
Well, the same thing.
said-
Oh no. Okay, I see where you're going. No, it's not going to handle whiskey or anything. It's just strictly,
all right.
yeah. It's a Class C license. And anyway, the board felt that they didn't want to give up. They only had 2 licenses left. And they didn't want to give those licenses up
The entire township?
for the entire township. They all been,
Is the entire township also include the village of Oxford?
the village of Oxford. I believe it. I'm not, I couldn't answer that one. I'm not sure. I do know that the village is
Village
given.
of Oxford has a heck of a lot of bars.
Yeah, they do. And I believe they're all exhausted in terms of what they can provide by the Liquor Control
Well,
Commission.
But that's a fairly small geographic area, whereas
Yeah.
the township of Oxford is quite large.
It is. But, you got to think of, that was in the good old days, when
when
all the immigrants came in with a bottle under their arm. So that may have changed a little since then. But anyway, actually we have, in the village, they now have their own brewery, a couple of them.
well, one's up and one's coming up,
One's coming up. So a couple of breweries. So
right next to each other.
right next to, practically, they are. I mean, you can visit one and then go directly to the next one.
Do they serve liquor in either of those?
They serve beer.
Well, that's
They
for
don't.
sure.
Yeah, I don't believe they serve whiskey or anything along that line.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know. I've been in
The
one of them. Well, one's not up yet, but
yeah. Well, I think the last Class C license was given out to this smokehouse, ribs and stuff on the other side of town that they're about to open.
that wasn't Class C.
Yeah, it was. It's Class
No, it
C.
wasn't, because you could get liquor there.
You could?
You could.
No, you can't because it's just been
Can't
issued.
now. It's torn down.
Yeah, no. You're thinking of a different location.
Well, which one?
And by the way, that one you're talking about is Embers, I think it is, or Burning Oaks.
Burning Oaks, yeah.
Yeah. That
Which one were you talking about?
will probably go back to the Liquor Control Commission and decide what they're going to do with it.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is south of town, Pearl.
Pearl, but that is a Class C, yeah.
That is a Class C.
The advertised draft beer.
You stand corrected.
I stand corrected or redirected. One of the two. I don't
Write
know.
this day down and take a note. Okay. So anyway, by the way, the Pearl is supposed to open, I think, the week before. Well, actually next week it should open up. By the time you folks view this, check it out. They had to serve some samples. of a-
Southwest Barbecue or
Right.
something like that?
the Women's Expo. We attended that with Bill Service,
Yeah?
and we had a booth there, and we kind of showed off the drone,
Yeah.
and very interesting. I mean, a lot of people were interested in the drone.
And you're droned on.
A lot of ladies. We droned on, yes. And so the Pearl was there as one of the companies, and they were giving out samples. They had a great brisket, I got to tell you.
A brisket.
A brisket. Excellent.
How was
Very
it?
good. Didn't have to put any sauce on it. It's perfect the way it was. So you folks check it out. It's going to be an interesting
Seems to be
business
a
down
lot
there.
of barbecue places going up, but
We have a lot of great restaurants, I think,
Yeah.
in Oxford
Yeah.
and in the township as well.
pretty much cover a lot of, between us and Lake Orion, we cover an awful lot of ethnic foods.
We do. Yep.
Chinese, Mexican, there's a Mediterranean one going in. Actually, a couple of Mediterranean ones.
Yes, there are.
Wow.
Mexican restaurant downtown Oxford is fantastic in terms of
Oh,
food.
yeah. Casa Real.
Casa Real. They could do a little work, I think, on their facade. kind of,
Well,
falling apart. Maybe it's that rustic look.
I just remember years ago, the color scheme kind of caught the Oxford, village of Oxford flat-footed on that one.
They did, huh? Okay.
Well, that was supposed to be trim, but look, they did the whole building.
I think it'd be nice, though, if, maybe the village council would take note and get them to repair the boards that are falling apart and those kind of things on that building.
Maybe
Bring it up to snuff, you know, like the rest of the
Maybe
buildings
they
in
can
town.
get a BCBG.
Yeah, you never know. Good. Well, actually, the DDA, you know, has grants
Yeah.
that they give out.
Sure.
So they could even apply for a grant.
They did
you
that
know.
for the Patterson drugstore at one time.
Yep, they did.
Wow.
Okay, so anyway, that's pretty much what they covered. Let me see, what else did they? Oh, they approved also safety packs for the fire department. Chief Schultz said that they had expired in terms of date,
Safety packs
Safe-
for the firemen themselves as opposed
Firemen.
to like
giving out
things to
for trick or
resuscitate
treat.
people.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, so that's what happened pretty much with the Township Board of Trustees. Next one we're going to talk about is the Downtown Development Authority, and there were really 3 segments held, 3 meetings in a time period. The first one was held for the benefit of the news media, and the people that spoke before this was Evan Teach, who's the acting village manager, and Glenn Pape, who is the executive director for the Oxford DDA. And they gave an overview of what the streetscape proposal is going to be. As you know, the M24 task force group had been meeting for months and months.
Trains coming down the tracks.
Trains coming down the tracks. But one point that he did mention, Evan, is that the year is 2019, but there's some question now from MDOT that it may even be postponed. You
I'm
know what's
sorry,
coming.
I'm laughing and it keeps getting pushed off.
Yeah. Well, they started this how many years ago?
Oh,
I'm not sure, but anyway, they are now, I think, in a good position in terms of what they're going to do and where the money is going to come from, and you know, everything is pretty much falling in place here.
So it's
Actually, it would be
happening.
nice.
Is 2019 concrete, or is it just sort of like maybe we need to go to
It's
2019?
concrete like Jello. Yes. It may change to 2020, but
And like Jello, it leaves you a lot of wiggle room.
it does. But you know, the year 2020 would be good in a way because it allowed
2020?
2020.
You just jacked it up another year.
Yeah, 2019. Anyway, 2019 is when it was going to be done, supposedly. 2020 now might be the change.
It was 2000. Okay. All right.
Now, what are you trying to tell me?
I have no idea.
I think you're trying to tell me it's time for another break. Right after this, folks. Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we've been talking about a lot of stuff here. And we just got through actually discussing what the DDA presentation was, you know, for the news media. So you folks will be seeing this on the, let me see, Clarkston News, I think.
Clarkston News?
Yeah, I think it'd be Clarkston News. It'd be different news medias that were there. Quite a few.
How about Lake Orion?
Lake Orion, yeah, they were there too, I think.
All right.
And lots of people there from the press, including OCTV, were there recording everything. Right. And some of the things they did talk about, of course, for the press was pedestrian crossings, what was going to happen, what they were going to look like, innovative sidewalk treatments that were going to be used rather than just plain old sidewalks, curbings, noise abatement was going to be done in those instances, and beautification components along the line. Also, a discussion was how you're going to control the traffic volume and
The term used was traffic calming.
calming. That's one of the words that they use. There are others. Okay, other words. Okay, so anyway, they're going to have 5 lanes, and they're going to narrow the lanes to 11 feet wide rather than 14 now, is what they are. And that will allow,
Gravel trains to pass even closer to your car.
no, they're going to put an island out there.
Oh, okay.
So the gravel trucks have to go really, really fast and jump the islands. No, that's going to work. Anyway, I think it's going to work pretty well. MDOT has actually designed this thing, so
Or will
hopefully they know what they're doing.
Or is there going to be a truck route?
There will be no truck route that we know of.
Okay.
They'll continue
just
to use. M24, of course, is a county highway, state highway. So there's no way you're going to shut off that highway. You make it more convenient for these trucks by digging a tunnel underneath the village, maybe.
Unless you make Glassby Street the straight highway.
I don't think the people
don't
who
think-
live on Glassby would like
Oh, they
that.
wouldn't be happy.
Oh, you don't think so? Yeah, they could get a little hostile probably.
Well, I'm just thinking if they narrow the street, and I'm sure they've taken the size of gravel trains coming through Oxford into consideration, especially if they're side by side. Right?
You're not really looking for an answer here, are you?
Yeah.
I hope not. I'll just ignore it and go on, okay? Part 2, we'll go to part 2 meeting. Okay, part 2 was the community open discussion. That meant that you folks out there could come in and ask any of these people, including the designer, who's Susan Grissom, who has been on top of this thing from the get-go and working with grants.
Now, she's
Any
from
kind
the
of questions?
state or from the county or what?
No, she's not from the state. She's an independent company.
Okay.
Yep, there's actually a combination of 3 different owners of that firm.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all they do is street design. And so all these villages and cities that you see change, something really
Was she involved
beautiful.
with Rochester?
That's
or-
what she does. Oh yeah, she was.
Okay.
So anyway, Rochester was a couple of the
Lake Orion?
Lake Orion as well. Yep. She worked with Grayling, I think, up in that area, Frankenmuth, all kinds of different villages and towns.
Okay.
Very sharp engineers in a way, in a
And they
sense,
learn
and
along the
designers.
way.
Well, these people are well learned.
Good.
Okay.
And every time you do something, you run into new
Yep.
situations and you learn from it.
Yep. Susan Grissom has been a great benefit, I think, to the village in doing this design and coming up with avenues for grant monies. So anyway, so that was what was discussed with each individual that had questions. One of the people that was there, one of the individuals that was there, let me see, I'm trying to think. There's a lot of them there that ask questions. But Chuck Snyder, he's got a pretty good investment in this town, so he was there and
No
asking
willpower.
questions. No willpower.
No wallflower.
No wallflower, no. Chuck had a number of very good questions for this group. And let me see what else happened here. Okay. Final estimate. Okay, let's talk about the funding of this thing. They're originally talking about $1.8 million
From the village?
for the total project.
Oh,
But the thing that was pointed out is that actually MDOT will pay back a certain amount of money. For example, they remove pavers, they remove sidewalks, they give you the money so that you can fix these things and repair them. That kind of
They take
thing.
them out at their cost, but
Right,
give
so
you the money to
you get a
repair.
credit.
Okay.
So eventually, the final estimate came down to 1.2 million, but without the grants. And with the grants all in place, if they're all approved, it should cost roughly about $790,000
Now,
for this project, complete project.
for the whole project, but once you start ripping up sidewalks, ripping up
Mm-hmm.
roads, then that exposes infrastructure, doesn't it? Like sewers and water. and
That all
gas.
takes that under consideration as
Okay,
well.
okay.
They know they're going to run roughly about 100 yards of pipe, roughly down through that area, to take care of the sewage and the water lines. I think are good, the water mains. So anyway, all that has been investigated and looks to me like they've got all their I's dotted, their T's crossed.
With dimensions changing, especially as regards sidewalk and streets and what have you, do they see any impact from signages from the businesses?
Not so much. Actually, when MDOT runs through there and do their work, they're going to go from foundation to foundation. They're going to actually take everything out, sidewalks, trees, you name it, everything. It's all going to be replaced with different curbing. The sidewalks will actually have more space on them because of the reduction of space taken from the roadway. For example, 11 foot instead of 14 foot. So you're going to have more room. They're going to have large decorative pots containing, greenery of some type. They're going to have flowers.
Will
They're
they
gonna-
still have street parking?
They're still going to have street parking, but a little less street parking than what they had before.
Okay.
One of the pushes they're going to have, of course, is, as you mentioned, signage. They have signage as to how to find parking in the rear of these buildings, which they don't really have a very good system right now. So
Right.
these are all things that were of interest, of course, that the you, the community, were asking questions as well, and the task force has been working on for months and months. So that's what went on with the second phase of this.
What do they say? If you make everybody happy, you haven't done your job.
Well, I think everybody was happy, actually.
Uh-oh.
The only ones that weren't happy, and it was a point was made, is that not as many businesses were there. There were only a few businesses that came to review this, and this is very important to you businesses out there.
That's the immediate impact.
Right, and the village hears all the time that the DDA isn't doing their job and they don't trust what's going on. You hear all those rumors, but when you have meetings like this that are very positive in a solid direction, nobody shows up. What's with that? I don't get it. Do you get it? I don't get it. So anyway, Joe Frost brought that up, and he's a new member on the village council, so he's very concerned. And most of you people in the village as businesses know Joe Frost, and he was around all the businesses, you know, when he was a DDA director before he went to the county.
Are they planning future updates on the system as things progress?
Yes, that's a very good question. As a matter of fact, Conduit is going to be run the full length. It's going to go down to Marketplace. We're going to have new lights.
What's it going to condu?
Yeah, it's going to have lights, which we're going to expand out. And the lights right now, I forget how many yards.
Electric conduit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but the conduit won't be fully used at that point. It'll be for expansion purposes down the line because they can't obviously provide as much lighting as they would like to at this point, in this phase. But no, it's
as an expense or as a physical constraint?
This is a ongoing, living, breathing project. So even though they get this part of it complete, just know that down the line, as monies are available through the DDA, that you'll see other changes as well. And you're going to see some big improvements. And one of the big improvements is going to be with Dave Weckel's project that he's doing just off Burdick Street. Yep.
Burdick Stanton.
And he got permission to move forward with that, with a building, a 3-story building. That's going to happen. I think that's going to make a big difference on that street in terms of development. And that was discussed in part 3.
Activity on that street right now.
That's right. And so where's the growth going to be? I mean, that's what you need to look at. Right. So you want constructive, positive growth, you know, for the village. And Dave Weckel has a dream to make this happen on that side. And he gave a very good presentation, which he's going to also take information to the Planning Commission where everything should be approved, nailed down, and he should be able to go forward. So you're going to see some things happen over there.
With all the changes that are occurring to the M24 portion of Village of Oxford, are any changes also planned for Burdick at all?
No, no planning for Burdick at this time. But again, I did mention that down the line, you know, there's going to be other things happen. There's infrastructure concerns too, you know, for streets and that kind of thing, which, by the way, Don Brantley was involved with, and you know, as the DPW director. So, you folks, stay tuned. A lot of neat things coming, and if you're thinking about jumping off the boat because this construction is coming along, would be the biggest mistake you ever made. Stick with it. What's coming up?
What's coming up? Well, we have a couple of meetings on 11/6 that's November, at 7 o'clock. The Village of Oxford Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA. Check on that one because half the time they cancel those meetings if they have nothing on their agenda. On 10/7 at 6:30, the Oxford Board of Education is meeting at the Oxford Middle School, which just happens to be Election Day.
Hey!
For
right.
the Oxford Board of Education.
Yeah, that would be it. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
Catch you right here next time on Minutes by Minute.
Welcome to American Legion in Oxford for the best fish on Fridays. That's right, from noon to 8:30. You can get the best walleye in Michigan. You can get walleye, baked cod, chicken strips, baked potatoes, and more. On the hall side of the Legion, oh, hello there, friends. You can have 12 friends on a table, any one of the best military museums in Michigan. And the dining side, oh, hello again. More comfortable with many 4-seat tables and a couple of 5-seaters. Now on Friday we usually have about 400 to 500 of best friends for our fish. Carry out? You bet. We have 50 to 60 carryouts at the post. We have some young friends with the birthdays and some of our best seniors at the post. Oh yeah, waitresses, they go like a track waitress to get your food. If you have never enjoyed our Secret's famous walleye at the Legion, come on in every Friday from noon to 8:30 at the American Legion Post 108 on 130 East Rainer Road, Oxford.